My wife slept with her ex just 2 weeks after we tied the knot. Now she wants back in my life. But what I told her at the airport, that shut her down completely. She walked away in tears, couldn't even say a word. I'm 31 now. My wife, well, ex-wife, I guess Zoe is 27. And yeah, we were married for just 2 damn weeks before everything completely fell apart. 2 weeks. That's all it took. We still had unopened wedding gifts stacked up in the living room when she decided to blow our whole life to pieces. It still doesn't feel real, like I'm stuck in someone else's nightmare. Just to give you some context, I work as a structural engineer. My thing is designing skyscrapers and big commercial developments. Been doing this for about 8 years now, and even though the hours can be brutal, I honestly love what I do. Zoe, well, she was, or maybe still is, hell if I know any more, a wildlife vet. That's actually how we crossed paths, kind of a funny story, really. We had this injured hawk show up at one of my job sites, and the site manager called the local wildlife rescue. Zoe rolled in wearing muddy boots and hair pulled back like she just wrestled a bear. She looked totally out of place next to all the guys in hard hats. But the way she handled that bird? Man, she was calm, confident, and just knew exactly what she was doing. I struck up a conversation with her while she was working on the hawk. Found out she'd just moved to the area. I made some smooth comment about showing her around town, real slick, I know, and somehow she said yes. One hangout turned into dinner, which led to more dates, and before I even realized what was happening, we'd been together for 3 years. Everything felt like it was falling into place. Sure, we had our little fights, stupid stuff like who was supposed to do laundry or me getting home late from work, but nothing serious. She put up with my ridiculous schedule, especially during those crunch times, and I supported her never-ending mission to nurse every injured animal within driving distance. Honestly, our place sometimes felt more like a wildlife rehab center than an apartment. There was even a week where a 3-legged raccoon camped out in our guest bathroom. No joke. But we were on the same page about the big stuff, kids eventually, a house out in the suburbs, a couple of dogs running around, all that. Made sense with her line of work. We even clicked over dumb little things. Both hated cilantro, both obsessed with true crime shows. Thinking back, maybe it all seemed a little too perfect, if that's a thing. Our wedding? Total dream for her, at least. She wanted this over-the-top ceremony at a vineyard, and I made it happen even though it nearly drained my savings. Took me a year of busting my ass, but seeing her light up that day felt worth it. Her dad, this intimidating, tatted-up ex-military guy, actually cried walking her down the aisle. That alone should have made national news. All my college buddies made the trip, even Marcus, my best friend, who's been working on some huge project in Dubai. He actually tried to warn me about Zoe. Said he'd picked up on some red flags, but like a fool, I waved it off. I figured he just didn't know her like I did. Typical love is blind crap. The ceremony itself was gorgeous, I'll give her that. Zoe spent months obsessing over every little detail, from the flower arrangements to this fancy wine we found on vacation. She even hired a calligraphy artist for the place cards, which cost a small fortune. My mom kept saying she'd never seen a wedding so beautiful. Now I wonder if she really meant it or was just trying to be kind. The reception was wild in the best way. We hired an amazing live band that kept everyone on the dance floor all night. Zoe's cousins flew in from Australia and introduced us to some ridiculous drinking game that had half the guests waking up with splitting hangovers. During our first dance, I remember looking at Zoe and thinking, this is it. I hit the jackpot. This is the beginning of everything I ever wanted. We honeymooned in Bali, Zoe's dream spot. Took 6 months of overtime and penny pinching to pull it off, but I was happy to do it for her. When we got home, everything felt amazing for exactly 14 days. We were still riding that just married high, still calling each other husband and wife every chance we got, like we were playing house. Still staring at our rings like they were little miracles. Zoe even brought up the idea of trying for a baby the next year. And then, just like that, the whole thing collapsed. 2 weeks in, she started acting off. And not just a little different, like a completely different person. Looking back, I can't believe how many red flags I straight up ignored. I was being a clueless idiot. First thing I noticed? She wouldn't get off her phone. Before the wedding, she'd actually nag me for checking emails during dinner. But now, she was the one glued to her screen. Texting nonstop, flipping her phone face down whenever I walked in the room, switching apps so fast it made my head spin. I convinced myself she was planning some surprise or something. What a joke. Then came the late nights at work. Now, I knew her job could get crazy, wild animal emergencies and all that. But this felt different. She'd say she had to stay overnight for a hurt eagle or some fox needing special care. But then I'd see the Wildlife Center's Instagram post saying that same fox had been released earlier that morning. Even then, I didn't want to believe it. I was swamped with work, trying to manage this beast of a project. A 50-story tower downtown with all kinds of structural puzzles to solve. And here's the kicker, it was for Leo's hospital. They were expanding the trauma wing and our firm landed the job. That's probably how Ava figured out Leo was back in town. See, Ava, Zoe's best friend, had seen the project blueprints at our place one night when she was hanging out with Zoe. And man, let me tell you about Ava. She's the kind of person who's been divorced twice before turning 30, cycles through boyfriends like shoes, and has a talent for stirring the pot. Her Instagram bio literally says, "If you can't handle me at my worst." You get the idea. Zoe got close to her through work. Ava's a receptionist at the Wildlife Center. And while I never said anything, I never liked her. Something about her just rubbed me the wrong way. Couldn't explain it at the time, but later, it all made sense. Nathan, he's a buddy of mine, told me Ava had actually tried to get my number back when I first came around during the Hawk situation. Apparently, Ava had been eyeing me from the start, but I was already locked in on Zoe. Should have picked up on how bitter Ava was about that, but I never brought it up with Zoe. I'd catch them whispering in the kitchen sometimes, laughing quietly, only for everything to go dead silent the moment I stepped in. One time I overheard Ava saying something like, "You deserve to be happy. You can't control who you love." I tried to brush it off at the time, but now, it's clear Ava was basically feeding Zoe poison every chance she got. I remember the morning everything blew up like it was yesterday. I'd been up since 5 a.m., working on these insanely complicated foundation plans for that downtown skyscraper. I was buried in calculations in my home office when Zoe came in, still in pajamas even though it was almost lunchtime. She looked like she hadn't slept a wink, sat down on the couch, and just started bawling. Not just crying, this was full-on, can't get a word out, ugly crying. My first thought? Someone must have died. Nope. Turns out Ava had encouraged her to meet up with Leo a few days earlier. And not out of the blue either, Zoe and Leo had apparently been texting back and forth for weeks by then. Now, Leo wasn't just any old ex. He was the college boyfriend, her first love. The guy she dated for 4 years before he took off to join Doctors Without Borders in Africa. He was back now, working as some big-deal trauma surgeon at the local hospital. And get this, he told Zoe he regretted leaving her and still had feelings for her. So instead of shutting that nonsense down like a married woman should, Zoe came into my office sobbing about how confused she was and how she needed time to figure things out. She sat there trying to explain to me how Ava had helped her come to the realization that she had unresolved feelings, and that she owed it to herself to sort through them before fully committing to our marriage. I'm sitting there thinking, we're already married. The ink's still wet on our marriage license. The thank you cards haven't even gone out yet. What the hell is there left to commit to? And then she hits me with the ultimate betrayal, like she's doing this for my own good. She goes, "I just want to be sure about us before we end up divorced in 5 years with kids involved." I must have looked like a deer in headlights, just sitting there, mouth open, brain short-circuiting. Looking back now, it's so obvious this whole thing was Ava's doing. She was the one who casually let it slip that Leo was back in town. She started showing Zoe his Instagram posts about being back from Africa, dropping hints left and right. Classic manipulation. And Zoe? She swallowed it whole. But here's where it flipped. Instead of falling apart like she probably thought I would, begging her to stay, crying, promising to change, I laughed. Not out of joy, not even out of anger. Just that messed up kind of laugh you do when something's so screwed up you don't know what else to do. Zoe looked at me like I'd gone completely off the rails. Maybe I had. Then I did something even I didn't expect. I grabbed my laptop, typed in best divorce lawyers near me, and started making calls. Right in front of her. She freaked out. "What are you doing?" "I never said I wanted a divorce." I looked her straight in the face and said, "No, what you need to do is get the hell out of my house." Not my most graceful moment, sure. I was exhausted, running on fumes, and my whole life had just exploded. She started sobbing harder, calling me unfair, telling me I didn't understand how complicated this was for her. And then came the line that lit me up: Leo was my first love. I need to know if there's still something there. I'll always wonder what if I don't explore this. That was it. I told her, flat out, you know what's not complicated? Marriage vows. You either meant them or you didn't. And clearly you didn't. She tried flipping it, accusing me of being controlling and unsupportive, saying I was being unreasonable for not letting her work through her conflicted emotions. Oh, and she made sure to add that Ava told her any man who truly loved her would give her space to figure it all out. That was rich? I pulled out my phone, scrolled past a few hundred honeymoon selfies, and pulled up the wedding video. I made her sit there and watch herself, watch the part where she promised to forsake all others. Then I asked, were you lying back then, or are you lying now? She went quiet. Dead silent. Then she shifted gears. Said maybe we could try couples counseling, figure it out together. I told her the only thing I was interested in figuring out was who the best damn divorce attorney in town was. And then she dropped the real kicker, the one that told me everything I needed to know about who she really was. She said Leo just finished a 36-hour shift at the hospital. He said I can stay with him while I sort this out. Her bags were already packed in the car. Turns out she'd moved half her stuff over to his place days ago while I was busting my ass working overtime on this massive downtown project. She wasn't just lost or confused. She'd already made her decision. This whole thing had been in motion for days. So, what did I do? Well, I didn't handle it like a saint, that's for sure. I started digging through our unopened wedding presents, making 2 piles, stuff she could keep and stuff I wasn't letting her touch. Yeah, petty? I know. But screw it. Then I called Marcus, the same Marcus from Dubai, and filled him in. He booked the next flight home without a second thought. That's a real friend. Zoe tried to say I was overreacting, dragging Marcus into it. I reminded her she was the one who invited her ex-boyfriend and drama queen best friend into our marriage, so maybe she didn't get to complain about my support system. The next few hours were a blur. She cycled between crying, defending herself, and getting mad at me for not being understanding. Understanding what, exactly? That my wife of 2 weeks was running off to shack up with her ex? That I was supposed to smile and say, sure honey, take your time discovering if I'm enough for you? She kept dropping lines like, I still love you and this doesn't mean I don't care about you and the classic, you'll always be special to me. She talked to me like she was dumping her prom date, not walking out on her damn husband. So I laid it out plain. I told her she had 2 choices, cut off all contact with Leo immediately and maybe we'd try to rebuild, or walk out now and this marriage is done. Forever. And she looked me in the eye and said, why does it have to be so black and white? That was the moment I knew she was already gone. I told her to leave and not come back. Turns out while Ava was busy whispering to Zoe that Leo was her one true love, she was also fishing for her own shot at him. The entire time she was nudging Zoe to leave me, she was laying the foundation to make her own move on the guy. Real piece of work, that one. I think Ava wanted Zoe to feel the sting she felt when I chose Zoe over her back in the day. She never got over that. Zoe caught her having lunch with Leo a few times and finally called her out. And Ava, completely shameless, actually said, well, you were married when you started texting Leo, so what's the difference? Can you believe that? I laughed so hard when I heard that karma really outdid itself. Then things took a surprising turn. Lillian, one of the senior vets at the Wildlife Center and someone Zoe used to look up to, reached out to me. She'd mentored Zoe when she first got the job. Lillian had seen firsthand how many hours I worked, how I basically broke my back to afford that picture-perfect wedding. She couldn't stand hearing Zoe twist the story, telling people I was controlling, always working, never around. Lillian became my little inside source after that. She even sent me a screenshot one day, Zoe crying in the break room because Leo had forgotten their 1-month anniversary. Yep, she left her husband for this guy and was heartbroken over a missed 1 month. Can't make this stuff up. But the real turning point came when Nathan, her brother, pulled me aside. He'd seen Zoe at their parents' house, he swung by to grab something and said she looked like a stranger. Wearing all this high-end designer stuff now, guess Leo makes good money, but there was something off. She looked drained. Sad. She tried to hug him. He stepped back and asked how the whole journey of self-discovery was going. She broke down. Told him she missed me, missed our life, said Leo wasn't who she thought he was. You know what I did when Nathan told me? I laughed. Like, straight up cracked up. The kind of laugh where you can't believe how ridiculous things have gotten. Then I told Nathan I had a meeting to get to. Total lie, I just went to the gym, crushed a protein shake, and hit a new deadlift PR. Felt like reclaiming a little piece of myself. And just when I thought life was settling down, I got a call from a headhunter. Some major project out in Hong Kong. They'd seen my foundation design work and wanted me to head up their new eco-friendly skyscraper build. 3-year contract. 7-figure deal. Full relocation. I didn't even think twice, signed the papers right away. Word got around, of course. People talk. And sure enough, Zoe showed up at my office not long after. She was a wreck. Crying, rambling about how I couldn't just disappear halfway across the world. Said she was confused about everything, maybe she made the wrong choice, maybe there was still something between us. I just looked up from my blueprints and said, sounds like a you problem. Then I went right back to what I was working on. The look on her face? Worth every single overtime hour I ever pulled. Apparently, Leo got wind of Zoe being at my office, some coworker of his spotted her crying and passed it along. And Leo? Man went full meltdown mode. Started blowing up Zoe's phone, demanding to know what she was doing talking to me. This from the same guy who was sliding into her DMs while we were still planning our wedding. But yeah, go off, buddy. And here's where it gets even juicier. While Leo was losing it over Zoe talking to me, guess who was blowing his phone up? You guessed it, Ava. Turns out they weren't just having lunch. They were meeting up in his office for, let's say, extracurriculars while Zoe was out working. How do I know this? Alan, the project manager who took over the hospital job after I stepped away, saw them constantly during site meetings. He's a good guy, and he kept me in the loop. Even sent me a few photos of them looking way too cozy for anything professional. So the same chick who torched my marriage was now hooking up with Zoe's new guy. You really can't make this stuff up. Zoe found out in the most perfect way. She'd planned this fancy dinner for Leo's birthday, spent a week prepping, cooked his favorite meal. Side note, she never cooked for me, not once, and bought him this expensive designer watch. And right in the middle of it, Ava drunk texts Leo, miss our lunch dates. Hope Zoe doesn't check your second phone. Yep, second phone. The guy had a whole other phone just to keep in touch with Ava. Real classy. Zoe absolutely lost it. Stormed out of the apartment around 11 p.m., tried calling her mom, who was off on a cruise. Then called her dad, who straight up told her, you made your bed, now lie in it. She called Nathan, but he was working late on my team, by the way. I just promoted him. And who does she call next? Me. Midnight. Crying. Telling me Leo is just like all the other guys, that she made a terrible mistake, never should have left me. I let it go straight to voicemail. Sent it directly to my lawyer, too, just in case. The next day? Chaos. Zoe walked into the wildlife center like nothing happened, only to find Ava already there, acting like everything was sunshine and rainbows. They had a full-on screaming match in the break room. Lillian, bless her heart, had the sense to record the whole thing. Sent it to me right after. Knew I'd need it for the divorce file. The best part? Mid-argument, Leo shows up trying to play peacemaker. Says he and Ava are just friends and Zoe's blowing things out of proportion. And Ava? This girl looks Zoe dead in the eye and says, at least I waited until he was single. Can you say the same? Cold-blooded. Things got so out of control, the center had to call in security. Zoe and Ava both got written up, Leo got escorted off the property. I'm telling you, it was glorious chaos. It felt like the universe wanted to make sure I saw every last bit of truth. I had updates coming from all directions, Nathan on the family side, Frank through her parents, Alan from the hospital project, and Lillian from the wildlife center. Everyone saw it. No one was buying Zoe's rewrite of the story. And me? I was back in my office, finalizing the Hong Kong contract and mentally checking out of this whole soap opera. The company even agreed to bring Marcus along. Gave him a senior engineer position. He's brilliant when he's not dragging my drunk ass out of bars anyway. Zoe, of course, tried one last round of damage control. Sent me this long, emotional email. Talked about how she finally sees things clearly, how leaving me was the biggest mistake of her life, how Leo was just some fantasy she got caught up in and real life hit her hard. My reply? Cool story. Please direct all future communication to my lawyer. So after everything, Zoe decided to try playing the family card. Her mom finally got back from her cruise and came knocking on my door unannounced, starts going on about how young people make mistakes and how true love deserves second chances. I let her talk for a minute just out of respect, but before I could say anything, Frank, Zoe's dad, showed up absolutely furious. He didn't say much, just told his wife to get in the car, then looked at me and said, still planning to visit you in Hong Kong once you're settled. Absolute legend. Later, Nathan filled me in. Zoe had moved back in with her parents after everything imploded. Meanwhile, Leo? Already moved on. He's apparently dating some nurse from pediatrics now. And Ava? Finally got canned from the Wildlife Center for, you guessed it, creating a hostile work environment. Took them long enough. Then last Friday, my firm threw a massive farewell party for me. Whole rooftop bar rented out downtown. They went all out, invited everyone from the company, some clients, even a few of my college buddies. Nathan helped organize the whole thing and made sure not to mention it to his family for obvious reasons. But somehow Zoe still found out. I'm guessing Ava's still connected to one of our receptionists and spilled the beans. The party was actually awesome at first. Good energy, drinks flowing, a lot of love in the room. I'd gotten my Hong Kong visa approved that morning, my apartment out there was already set up, and thanks to my post-breakup gym grind, I was in the best shape of my life. I was talking to this architect from the Hong Kong team, really cool woman, when Nathan comes running up, all out of breath like, "Dude, Zoe's here. She's making a scene." And I'm thinking, of course she is. I head out to the lobby and there she is crying, trying to talk her way past security. And here's the kicker, she's wearing the dress. The one from our first date, the one I once told her was the moment I started falling in love. She'd kept it all these years and apparently thought this was the time for some big dramatic gesture. She clearly had this whole entrance planned like she was starring in some rom-com finale. Showed up right in the middle of speeches, probably imagining I'd see her, get emotional, and run into her arms or some movie nonsense like that. But security wouldn't even let her in, she wasn't on the guest list. I hadn't even noticed her yet because I was still inside talking shop with the architect. Then Nathan pulled me out and there she was, mascara running, clearly had a few drinks, standing in this old dress that didn't even fit right anymore. She dropped weight from all the stress she created for herself. And then, just to really top it off, she drops this bomb, she bought a ticket to Hong Kong. Real ticket. Said she had a whole plan, was going to show up at my apartment next week and try to win me back. She thought that was romantic. I thought it was borderline stalker behavior. I looked her straight in the eye and said, "You need help. Like actual, professional help." Then I turned around and walked back into the party. But Zoe wasn't done. She tried to follow me in, and when security stopped her, she went full meltdown, screaming that I never loved her, that if I had, I'd forgive her one mistake. And that's when Marcus stepped in. Stone cold, he looks at her and goes, "One mistake? You mean texting your ex before the wedding or moving in with him 2 weeks after? Which one are we counting as one?" Zoe just froze. Then started crying even harder, which I didn't think was possible, and tried saying Leo manipulated her. She was scared, she didn't know what she was doing. Just then, perfect timing, guess who walks by? Leo. Arm in arm with his new nurse girlfriend. They're strolling past the building, sees Zoe in full breakdown mode, and Leo? Doesn't say a word. Just keeps walking. Didn't even make eye contact. The look on Zoe's face when she saw them. I almost felt bad. Almost. Security finally got her to leave, but not before she tried handing me some letter. I didn't take it. She left it on the floor and Marcus picked it up after she left. We ended up reading it later that night while drunk. It was pages of her rewriting our entire relationship, trying to paint herself as the victim. Like I was the bad guy. It was honestly kind of hilarious. The second she was gone, the vibe of the party jumped back up. Everyone kept buying me drinks, telling me how I dodged a bullet. Oh, and that architect from Hong Kong? Her name's Priya. Ironic, right? She gave me her number. Said she'd show me around once I got there. Solid ending to the night. Later, I found out Zoe actually went to Leo's place after she left the party. Nurse girl answered the door. That did not go well from what I heard. Now Zoe's apparently in therapy. Good for her, I guess. Bit late though. Fast forward a few days, I was all packed up and ready to go. Said my goodbyes to my parents, locked everything down for the renters, and headed to the airport feeling pretty good. Flight was at 6 a.m. connecting in Dubai, where Marcus lives, before I continued on to Hong Kong. Simple plan, get dropped off by my folks and Nathan, fly out, start fresh. But nah, Zoe had one last card to play. I show up at the airport around 4 a.m. dragging my suitcase toward check-in. And who do I see standing there, full luggage and all? Zoe. Girl actually bought a ticket to Dubai. Not even Hong Kong, just Dubai, because that's all she could swing. Her big idea? Tag along halfway, try to convince me mid-flight or something. I honestly don't think she even had a full plan. Just vibes. And she brought back up her dad, Frank. But get this, he wasn't there to help her. He was there to stop her. Nathan had warned him, and Frank showed up to drag her back home if she tried anything. Zoe sees me and launches into this whole speech. You could tell she'd rehearsed it. Said love is about fighting for what matters, that she couldn't just let me walk away without trying one last time. Meanwhile, Frank's standing behind her, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Then she pulls out this photo album. It's filled with pictures, us together, wedding shots, everything. She clearly spent days putting it together, hoping I'd flip through it, get nostalgic, and forget the fact that she torched our marriage like it was nothing. I just walked right around her and checked in. Didn't even stop. She started crying again, loud, messy, and said she'd prove her love by following me to Hong Kong if she had to. At that point, all I could think was, thank God this flight boards soon. That's when Frank finally stepped in. He grabbed Zoe's suitcase and, in front of everyone, said, the only place you're following anyone is back home. You're embarrassing yourself, and more importantly, you're embarrassing me. I swear, I've never seen Zoe go quiet so fast. You could have heard a pin drop. But it gets better. Guess who else was at the airport? Priya, the architect from the Hong Kong firm. She was on the same flight, had been in town wrapping up the project handoff. She walked right up, gave me this warm hug, and asked if I was still on for dinner later that week in Hong Kong. The look on Zoe's face? Absolutely priceless. Like her whole brain just shut down for a second. She started doing this weird half-laugh, half-cry thing and blurted out, "You're already dating?" I thought what we had was special. That's when I finally let it out. Something I'd been holding on to for months. I looked her in the eye and said, yeah, what we had was special. And you traded it for some fantasy with a guy who already moved on to someone else. That's not on me. That's all you. Frank had to practically drag her out of there. Last thing I heard was her crying that I was being cruel for moving on. The irony in that? Chef's kiss. As for the flight, it was actually incredible. I got bumped to first class, shared a few drinks with Priya, and we talked about architecture, travel, and life. Turns out we've got a lot in common. She's sharp, motivated, has a great sense of humor, and most importantly, she's actually single. We're having dinner tomorrow. I landed in Hong Kong a few hours ago. My new apartment is unreal, panoramic view of the skyline, private pool, the works. Just got a text from Frank. He said Zoe finally agreed to take therapy seriously. She's moved back home, quit her job at the wildlife center, too much drama, especially with Ava still lurking, and she's supposedly focusing on herself now. Good for her, I guess. Bit late, but still. Leo? Word is he's engaged to that pediatric nurse. It's been what, 2 months? Sure. That'll go great, I'm sure. Ava? She got canned from the wildlife center too. She's now working at some shady private zoo. Karma's got a sense of humor, I'll give it that. Right now, I'm standing on my balcony looking out over the Hong Kong skyline, and for the first time in a long time, I feel good. Tomorrow I start work on the biggest, most exciting project of my career. And this weekend I've got a date with a gorgeous, successful woman who actually respects me. Marcus is flying in soon, joining me here. He's got a senior role on the project. Nathan, who's more like my real brother now, is planning to visit too. Sometimes life completely falls apart so it can come together in a better way. What felt like the end turned out to be the beginning. To everyone who followed this wild ride, thanks. Seriously. Your advice, support, and even the brutal honesty helped more than you know. Special shout out to everyone who told me to hit the gym and work on myself. You were right. It made all the difference. And Zoe, if you're still creeping on my Reddit like I know you are, yes, even with the throwaway, I hope you figure your stuff out. Really, I do. But I won't be around to see it. It's time for me to live my new life.